And welcome to Nancy's Neighborhood, folks. It's good to be back with you today. I will tell you that I have a different producer today. This week, Bryce is on vacation, so Jay Miles is over producing the show today. So hopefully things are going to go fine. Jay will do fine. It's just if Miss Nancy understands the signals he's given me from the sidelines. But we have two guests today that have some exciting things to talk to us about, and I'm thrilled to start today's program with Alan Clark from Trousdale School. And I tell you why I'm so thrilled about this, because there was an article in the Banner. Y'all know how I read the Banner, front to back, back to front, the whole way. Trousdale's Clark participates in Capitol Hill Forum. Now that means you went to Washington, D.C.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, tell everybody about that. How did you get there? How did you get on the agenda? Tell us all about it.
Well, thank you. Trousdale School is a private nonprofit who serves adults with intellectual disabilities here in Cleveland, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. We're located in South Bradley County. In 2012, we bought what used to be Asbury United Methodist Church off of Dockery Lane, and then renovated it, turned it from a church into a school to better fit our needs. Trousdale School is all of our students are over the age of 22, so we are a post-secondary opportunity. After they finish the public school system, they can apply to become a student at Trousdale. And the way that I got involved with this panel is we are part of NAPSIC, which is the National Association of Private Special Education Centers. That's our professional organization, which represents approximately 300 different organizations.
Wow.
Representing folks all across the spectrum of special needs, from visually impaired to hearing impaired, adults, ADHD, autism, behavior issues. All of those can be a part of NAPSIC. In 2015, we received our national accreditation through NAPSIC, the National Council on Accreditation for Special Education Schools. There are less than 30 in the country, and we are the only one in the state of Tennessee with that particular accreditation.
Neat.
And then, more importantly, I guess for us in our future, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is in February of this year we received our license through the Tennessee Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, and we're the first and the only one with an adult day habilitation in the state of Tennessee. So we're really excited about both of those opportunities, which lets us move forward. But back to the panel. Each year,
this was exciting to me.
Each year, NAPSIC hosts a Hill panel, and just for a way to have new congressional members, new staffers, and things like that be aware of special education, for one, understand who NAPSIC is and who they represent, two, and number three, to make sure that any funding that we could possibly get or possibly lose is not compromised in any way. And so it's a way just for us to stay afresh in the minds of the people that they're in the Capitol that can make policy changes that would affect the organization, and especially the bigger audience of special needs. This year, because of the Medicaid waiver and the impacts that Medicaid cuts could potentially have, they focused on adults. Last year was transition, as students or children are transitioning from high school into other programs. This year is specifically focused on adults. So we had 4 panel members this year. One panel member is actually on the board of NAPSIC and also represents our policy and legislature on the national level, and he wanted to speak about some of the policy changes that it impact special education, impact the people that all of us serve, not just Trousdale School. And then another panel member is from Pennsylvania. She serves a school that would have more medically severe clients than Trousdale School would have.
Okay.
And so she specifically was looking at the community waiver, which impacts the students going out into the community to work, which is now slated at like 60% of their time needs to be spent in the community. Those impacts there. And also she wanted to speak about the decreasing access to services once these type of individuals over the age of 21, so
Right.
out of the public school system.
And let me explain just real quickly. The public school system takes these students ages 4 to 21, but after they turn 21, then there are not a lot of options for them. Trousdale is one, and I think we have Life Bridges here is another. So these options are very vital to to these students continuing their forms of education.
And that's correct. And so specifically to that Medicaid waiver, while Trousdale School doesn't receive any state or federal funds, it could impact the services our students receive. But to these other programs, it is a part of their financial model. It can range anywhere from 40 to 60%. So
wow.
these programs are really concerned about what those cuts will, how that would impact their school. The other organization there is from Connecticut, and she spoke on. They are a 3-year transitional program, and so students come to them, learn primarily life skills, some job skills, and then they transition out into the community. And so she was looking at how these individuals thrive. And once they are independent out in the community,
Right.
where they're living in a supported environment, in an apartment, in a group home, whatever the case may be. Of course, she had her 2 cents on the Medicaid waiver as well,
Of course.
because that impacts some of the services they provide. So that made up with myself, that comprised our panel. And so we all spoke on adults. The overarching theme was on Medicare in this community waiver, and then but my part specifically, first I focused on post-secondary education. As you mentioned before, there are not too many programs available to students after high school, and Trousdale School is one of the few that focuses on true post-secondary opportunities after students turn 22. At Trousdale School, we teach functional academics, reading, writing, math. They might not always be fun, but our students do do that. And we call it functional in that we're not teaching algebra and calculus and those things. We're teaching them how to budget a grocery bill, how to keep a checkbook, calculate the tip on a restaurant bill. We're teaching them reading skills, writing skills. We do formal letter writing. And so we're teaching them things that they will use as they get older and can be independent in life.
A lot of those things I need to learn, like how much of a tip and this and that, so I think that's great.
That's correct. Life skills, which we have an apartment setting set up in our school where we teach students how to wash clothes and wash dishes and cook and iron and make a bed and fold clothes. All of those things that they need to live independently and do those skills for themselves. We've yet to have a public school teacher that come through and say, we still need these in the high schools the way it used to be a long time ago.
Yes.
Because most of my generation, we didn't learn how to wash clothes until that first month after our freshman year in college.
That's
and we
exactly right.
looked around and said, where's our clean clothes? So
Do we have any clean clothes?
And
Yes.
then now what do we do? So we teach occupational development. We have a vocational lab set up with about 90 different activities in our vocational lab. And so part of our occupational development is teaching students how to build a box and sweep and mop and inventory, take inventory and stock shelves and run a cash registers, those specific skills they need for their job. But we're also teaching those things that you and I may have learned through experience on our first job, that hard work is really hard.
Yes.
Communication sometimes can be very difficult. Sometimes coworkers can be difficult. And those types of things we have to keep teaching. And for example, we have a gentleman a student of ours that works at the Cleveland Y here locally, and he come in one day very distraught. And so we started talking about his day, and he said, I have a hard time mopping my floor because of all the customers that come in.
Aha.
And I said, well, if it wasn't for the customers, you wouldn't have a job. And so sometimes we have to learn, we have to suck it up and do it. And so those are things that we continually have to reinforce. And if you're new to education, or specifically special education, in traditional education, it's linear. We don't go to step 2 until we've learned step 1. We don't move to step 4 until we mastered step 1, 2, 3. But in special education, it's circular. We have to teach and assess and then maybe modify and reteach and assess and maybe accommodate and reteach. And those go around and around. And perhaps, it's a certain skill that we have to stay on for a long time. And sometimes it may be ones that we can move on and have to revisit. But that's why post-secondary opportunities are so important for this population, is because that learning curve greatly decreases faster than it would for a typical learning developing student, and so we constantly have to reinforce that education cycle. And so between those three things, functional academics, life skills, occupational development, then we're trying to teach our students how to be more independent. Anything they can do for themselves will make them a better student, citizen, employee, child if they're still at home, whatever the brother, sister, whatever the case may be.
Right. See, I taught special education for 8 years. I had what they called then the CDC, ages 4 to 21. So when they left me, some of them went to U, some of them went to Life Bridges, some of them went, some of them didn't go anywhere. And to me, that's sad when the ones that didn't. But now I have a question for you specifically. You named the people that were on the committee that went to Capitol Hill for the forum. How were you selected?
We, because of first, the NAPSIC was the first filter, obviously,
Okay.
since we're part of that organization, and then the second was the programs that served adults. They felt like that the four of us gave the best breadth of the types of programs adults could encounter as they go into post-secondary opportunities. And outside of that, I guess we have some camaraderie between the four of us already, and so it made for a good, effective working team.
Fantastic. Well, you're very articulate on what you do, and so I can see you there. But how overwhelming or exciting was it to do that? I mean, I just can't even imagine stepping from Cleveland, Tennessee into that environment.
It was at the very first there was shock that it took a while to settle in. The first time it was scheduled for September, and then we got postponed due to the election. We got bumped for all of the pomp and circumstance over the election. The second time was March, when there was supposed to be the El Nino effect coming through, and I don't think they ended up getting as much snow, but we got bumped then, and so it ended up that it happened a few weeks ago. And so being escorted like that, and of course, if you remember your news, the shooting at the baseball game was the day before, so
That's right.
security was super tight, and so not only to make our nerves even more on edge, we had to walk through all the levels of security and guards and things like that. But to be escorted around Capitol Hill was a big opportunity, not just to represent Trousdale School, but special education and this population in general. So I guess the most fodder come from, I spoke on several of our students' jobs and things that they experience at the school, but I was able to speak about one of our students, Adam, who works at the Helen DeVos College of Education here at Lee University. And the reason that caused so much fodder is, as you may know, Helen DeVos is the mother-in-law of Betsy DeVos, the current Secretary of Education.
Right,
so,
right.
While I won't comment on the comments from the audience, I mean, it did make for some good fodder, though.
I bet it did. I bet it really did. And that was a really good picking on your part to pick Adam to be the one to talk about. So, but again, did you get to spend any time in Washington and do any sightseeing or anything, or was it just like a quick little trip in and out?
Well, yes and no. I guess the whirlwind was about 40 hours. My wife Shannon is also a director at Trousdale, so
Right.
this time she got to go with me. The other two times she wouldn't have been able to. So we did get to have a date night on Wednesday. Thursday night we went out with all of the upper echelon of NAPSIC and had a nice dinner, and pretty much it was what we got to see walking from from one place to another. So as you know, in downtown D.C., I mean, that's nothing to pass en route from our little row house to the NAPSIC headquarters to the Capitol. You pass the Library of Congress and Supreme Court, and I mean, it's so much history and
Right.
tradition there.
And it's all kind of right there. Okay, now y'all have got some exciting things that are getting ready to happen at Trousdale, hopefully, in the next year or two. So do you want to just elaborate on them just a little bit?
Yes, ma'am. The accreditation and licensure that I spoke to earlier is those are things that we specifically had to do in conjunction with the state of Tennessee in order for us to move forward with a residential facility. Right now we're a year-round day program. We take off 5 weeks a year, spring, summer, fall break, and 2 weeks at Christmas. Our students work, so we're open so they can go to work. And but the vision has always been to build a residential program, to be a college for those we serve. And right now, Shannon and I working with architects and contractors to start to develop out our campus master plan and figure out exactly what that looks like. Our goal right now is to break ground in 2019 on a residential facility. Currently we have about 30 students in a day program, and right now, according to our strategic plan, we're looking at about 30 in our day program and 50 resident boarders on campus.
Super. Okay, I want to get you back on with me after you get some, a little bit more in depth on the dorm.
Yes.
Because I think that's going to be so exciting, and I know those kids are going to be really, really excited about that, because right now some of them come, parents drive them in, or that you have buses that pick them up.
That's correct.
I know when I was campaigning out on the side of the road on Highway 11, I'd pass you all going to Chattanooga to pick up and coming back.
That's correct.
So I think the residential would be great. So I do want to get you back on. Keep me posted on how you're doing on that, and let's talk about that again, because I'm quite sure you're going to have some kind of fund drive to do this.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I do want to get you back. Alan, thank you so much. This has been to me, so interesting, because when I saw this in the paper, I thought, oh my gosh, he's up there with the big time. So that's great. So thank you, and I will get you back on. We'll talk about the dormitory situation. Folks, don't go away, because Alan led into something that we're going to segue on into, higher education. So don't go away. I'll be right back in just a minute. Watch our commercials and be sure you support our sponsors, because they pay our bills. We'll be right back. Thank you.